Okay, guys, this is day 4 of talking about Marcus Garvey. I know we're talking about the UNIA, the United Negro Improvement Association, and him bringing it to America. This is going to be the first of at least 2 videos on that because a lot happens with Marcus Garvey and the UNIA once he creates a branch, excuse me, once he creates a branch in New York. It's still running in Jamaica, but once he creates a branch in New York, a lot happens. So I'm going to try, and I don't want these videos to be much longer than 10 minutes. I'm trying to keep them kind of shorter for you. So this is going to be at least a 2-part thing where we talk about the UNIA in America. Let's get to it. He moved to the U.S. in 1916, Marcus Garvey did. And he actually went on a public speaking tour when he came to America, I guess trying to gain notoriety for himself. To become known for what he was doing, for what his cause was. And then in 1917, the next year, he started his New York branch of the UNIA. He declared membership open to, Membership was open to anyone of Negro blood and African ancestry who could pay the 25 cents a month membership fee. No, I honestly don't know how much 25 cents was back then. Obviously, it was more than it is now, but I don't think it was a terribly large amount. But and again, Marcus Garvey, once he came to America, became a very prolific public speaker. It was said that before he started the UNIA, he did a 38-state speaking tour, and he gained a lot of contacts and a lot of people he came in touch with that that helped raise his public profile. With the UNIA in America, he sought to reach Black migrants as well as African Americans. So again, it's this sense of bringing the the Black community together. African Americans being people of Black and of African ancestry who were born here in America, and African migrants being people from either Africa or the Caribbeans who came to America, like him. He was not considered an African American. He's an African Jamaican because that's where he was born, and then he moved to America. So he wanted to unite these groups, the people who came here from another country and the people who were born here, and unite them under the flag of being Black or being from African descent. Now, he did try to join the war effort in 1917. The First World War, World War I, was between 1914 and 1918. In 1917, he tried to join the war effort. He was declared physically unfit to serve. Soon after this, he actually opposed Blacks being in the war. He said that it was a white man's war, and he didn't think that African Americans or people of Black ancestry should be involved in this white man's war. A lot of his change, again, I think you all remember when we talked to him about him before in Jamaica, he actually got in trouble because he sought the support of the white elite when he was building the UNIA in Jamaica. And now he's in America opposing whites or Black involvement in what he is calling a white war. Well, that change of heart, in a large part, came because he came across a man named Hubert Harrison. Hubert Harrison had started the Liberty League of Negro Americans, and they had a speech together where they both spoke, and it raised Marcus Garvey's profile. People got to know him from that speech. Hubert Harrison was all about Black self-reliance, racial separation. Now, Black self-reliance is just what it sounds like. It's similar to Black self-determination. Is Blacks just relying on themselves, not relying on outside people to help them, but just the Black community helping, supporting themselves and helping themselves. In racial separation, a lot of people back then, and you'd be surprised how many believe it now, that Blacks should live separately from whites in our society. Now, in America, that's almost unfathomable because we are all so intertwined in one another's lives. But a lot of people believe that it would be better for Blacks as a whole if Black people were just around other Blacks and didn't rely on whites and had their own community and lived separately from whites. And this is what Hubert Harrison was about. And he influenced Marcus Garvey heavily, as you're going to see as we go on with Marcus Garvey's Back to Africa campaign and things like that. He starts to see things like that himself. Now, in 1917, as well, later on, after he couldn't get in the war, something happened actually right across the river from where you all are right now in St. Louis. The East St. Louis riots, the East St. Louis race riots. I did a little bit of research on these, and I didn't know a whole lot about this. I had heard of them, but I didn't know a lot about them. A lot of Southerners started moving up north, and this is a common occurrence in American history, where black people in the South feeling oppressed move up north. The further up north you move, it tends to be better. Society tends to treat you better, although it's not always the case, but it does tend to get better the further up north you move. And you have a trail, basically, that was cut, particularly from where we are sitting, that goes from New Orleans up to Memphis to St. Louis to Chicago, and then into Canada. And that's the route that a lot of these people took. I was telling you, we all have we have a lot of family in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because of this. These East St. Louis riots were a right response to a lot of Southerners moving into this East St. Louis, Illinois area, right across the river from St. Louis, Missouri, where you all are. And they saw that these black Southerners were taking a lot of jobs, and whites were getting upset by it. So over a period, it looks like of about maybe 5 or 6 weeks, it was from May to July in 1917, African Americans were attacked by white mobs. They were beaten to death, shot, lynched, which means being hung, and driven into burning buildings by whites. Somewhere between 39 and 150 blacks died. 6,000 blacks were made homeless. It's considered one of the worst race riots in U.S. history. Garvey saw this happening. The whole country saw it happening. And Garvey did what Garvey did best. Marcus Garvey created a pamphlet, The Conspiracy of the East St. Louis Riots. And he started selling this pamphlet. And he used the proceeds to support the victims of the riots. So again, he is using his gift for activism. He sees something bad going on in the place where he lives, or in the country where he lives, because he lived in New York. And he did something about it. He used his talents and helped people, which is an invaluable lesson. Unfortunately for him, as a result of creating this pamphlet and a lot of the rhetoric that came from the pamphlet and his speeches, the FBI began monitoring him, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, which investigates, among other things, domestic terrorism. Now, the FBI was turned against blacks a lot back then. Martin Luther King himself, which he was decades later, he had an FBI file, and the FBI actually threatened him. And we won't go into that right now. It's a lot that goes into that. But a lot of black activists had FBI files because the man who ran the FBI at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, was a rabid racist, and he ran the FBI for maybe 50 years, like decades. And he made it very difficult for blacks who were trying to make things better in this country for minorities to live their lives. He targeted them pretty viciously. And Marcus Garvey came to the attention of the FBI, so they started monitoring him. Despite this, the UNIA grew rapidly in 1918. It was about 600 people in 1917. He launched a weekly newspaper, Negro World. And it's pretty cool because there were 400 black newspapers, around 400 black newspapers in the United States at the time. And of course, you run ads to pay for your newspaper. Marcus Garvey was unique in that there weren't a lot of newspapers who did this, but he refused to run advertisements for skin lightening and hair straightening products. We call black hair kinky. I know our hair it's not as black as a lot of people's hair, but it tends to be harder to comb through. It curls really tightly, and they're called kinks. He said, take the kinks out of your mind instead of out of your hair. Of course, I love that quote. But he was all about having natural hair and not trying to lighten your skin, but being proud of the color that you were. Again, remember, he was oppressed in Jamaica for being dark, and that colored his life. So when he saw it, his opportunity to support people who were darker, he did it by not advertising these products for them to change their hair or change their skin color, and for them to just be happy with who they were. After 1 year, the circulation of the UNIA's weekly publication, Negro World, was nearing 10,000 people. About 10,000 people were reading it a week, almost. And that's from a year before that, a little over a year before that, there were 600 people who were members of the UNIA. So there was very rapid growth in a very short period of time, and copies of Negro World circulated not only in the US, but also in the Caribbean, Central and South America. And it says several British West Indian islands banned the publication. So a lot of islands in the Caribbean banned the publication. Now remember, most of the islands in the Caribbean, I'm not sure if it was all of them, but the vast majority of them were European colonies. So the Europeans did not want the ideas from Negro World to be spread on their islands, because it might put people in the mind of wanting to be independent and wanting to be separate from their European colonizers. So that says something as well, that Negro World was such a powerful publication that not only was it uplifting to blacks, that it drove fear into the hearts of European oppressors. All right, we are going to stop right there. Again, there's a lot that goes into this video. It's already over 12 minutes long. Please forgive me. I'm trying not to make these videos too long. I will talk to you all about further things that happened with the UNIA and Marcus Garvey in America and where it ends up heading in the next video. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.